It's really good to welcome Stuart and Peter today to Clandestine Whisky. They own a company called Chocisky, which I'm sure you can work out. They provide chocolate with actually matches to whiskey, but it's not your common garden chocolate. It's actually single estate chocolates, which are absolutely wonderful. Stuart and Peter, welcome to Clandestine Whisky.
Hi, Dave. Nice to be here.
Oh, it's so
And you
great
did
to
it right.
chat to you guys. We sort of met initially, last year, and I was sort of chatting on Instagram, and you tasted your chocolates, and they were just absolutely wonderful. So I wanted you to be one of the first people I chat to in this interview series. Let's just start. Chocisky, how has it all come about?
Well, we're two guys that we absolutely love whiskey. We live in the heart of distillery country. We stay a couple of miles away from Dalmore on one side, Glenmorangie just a few miles further, Glenord out the other side, Tomatin not far up the road. So we've been kind of seasoned kind of whiskey drinkers. I mean that in a good way, in moderation, everything in moderation, boys and girls, not too much. And we were first kind of turned on to chocolate and whiskey pairing, probably 30 years ago, by an old distiller who worked in our local distillery, Dalmore. And he sort of pulled out of his jacket one night a bar of Bourneville chocolate and said, "You try this, lads," in a hushed voice in a smoke-filled room in the days when you could still smoke in public houses. And that's kind of where it started. It was just something that we experimented with and enjoyed doing over many years. We tried kind of most of the chocolates that were on the market, from sweet milk chocolates to dark high cocoa content chocolates to artisan creations that people were preparing and selling into that space specifically for whiskey chocolate pairing. And I think one night we had a good session, I have to say. And when we woke up in the morning, we were both feeling a little bit the worse for wear, but not through too much alcohol. I think it was due to the amount of chocolate that we'd probably eaten. A lot of calories in some of these artisan products, excellent as they are. And we just started chatting that evening. We're thinking, that was fantastic, but we're putting on a few pounds here, a lot of calories here, and we didn't really want something that would compete with the whiskey, because that's what we were finding. We're finding we were eating people's creations, artisan creations, but they were competing with the whiskey. They were kind of drowning the whiskey out in some respects, and that's not what we wanted, because really it was about the whiskey, and it was about promoting the idea of whiskey tasting, about mindfulness, training our olfactory systems to become more proficient in teasing out the nuances of flavour from the whiskies that we enjoyed. So we chatted about it, and Pete thought, that's a good idea. So we tried to come up with a name, and it didn't take long to actually come up with a name, really. It seems a simple name. Funnily enough, we put the idea of whiskey chocolate pairing into one of these business name algorithms that create names for you, and it spat out so many names, but it didn't spit out Chocisky. And we thought, well, that's got to be the one. And I think it was actually the name that enabled us to move the idea forward, because neither of us come from that background. We don't come from a gourmet food background. We knew we had a great idea, but we had to actually meet other people that would work with us. So I think the first thing we had to do was try and identify chocolatiers, and we started phoning round. And you can imagine how difficult it is if you're not, get experience in that industry, and you're picking up a phone cold and you say, "Hi, I've got this really great idea." Oh yeah, you can almost hear the eyes rolling the other end of the phone. And we had a few setbacks, but then one day, and I can't actually disclose the chocolatier we get our chocolate from. We're under a non-disclosure agreement. That's commercially sensitive information, but the product speaks for itself, I hope. And you've tried the chocolate.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely delicious.
Top quality, yeah. And it just so happened that person was looking for something else to develop in their range, something else that they could do. On the day we phoned them, and they said, "Oh yeah, and what are you going to call this? What are you going to call this then?" And we went, "Well, we'll call it Chocisky." And there was just a silence, a deathly silence on the phone. And he went, "Yeah, that's a good idea. Let's go for that. What I want you to do is you go away and you sort of testing our metal, testing how serious we were." He said, "I want you to go away and I want you guys to come back to me with flavour profiles for the whiskies that you want to pair up with chocolate." And then we thought, well, how the hell do we do that? Because, there's so many different profiles. So we had to sit down, we put our brains together, and we came up with the idea that what you could do, I mean, there's so many different flavors now and so many different barrels being used, esoteric barrels, unique barrels, but really traditionally, you can look back, and what you can do if you do enough research is you can tease out the lowest common denominators in regional flavor variations, or variations of regional flavors. So that's what we had to do. We came up with we looked at the 6. Some people say there's 5. We choose to consider it 6 regional variations in Scotland. We came up with 6 flavor profiles, and then that was it. We worked with the chocolatiers. We had access to over 125 different recipes, some of them really old recipes, some of them more modern recipes. And it started from there, really.
Yeah, amazing. So how did you actually whittle it down between, the different regions, or initially in Scotland, to the actual chocolates? Now, I think we should actually start. I love the match because obviously, as whiskey drinkers, then we do like to have some single cask expressions and particularly enjoy those. So the fact that your chocolates come from single estates as well, I think is very apt. But yeah, I mean, how long a process was it to actually match this chocolate to this region?
It probably took about 2 months in all. We had sessions with various people around, so we tried different whiskies with different chocolates, and we just narrowed it down slowly, Yeah. And eventually we got it down to about 12 chocolates. Then again, we had one last session, didn't we? And just whittled it down to the 6, and then we chose them 6 and then went with that.
Yeah, it wasn't an easy process. I mean, I think at the beginning, we were all pumped up and we thought, wow, this is great. What a great idea. We're going to get into this new business and this new industry that's going to percolate out there, and everyone will love this idea. And fortunately they do. But at the beginning, the enthusiasm for drinking whiskey and tasting, I think for the first 2 weeks, every night we were all pumped up and going around there. Oh yeah, great. Everybody's sitting around the table. Then after 2 weeks, it's like, oh, another night, another night of tasting and chocolate. Oh, could I have tonight off, Pete? Do you mind if we just have tonight off? I think my olfactory system needs a break.
Bit of a reset.
It took a couple of months. It took a couple of months at least of tasting and focus groups doing that. Because once we had the idea, we just wanted to move it forward really, really quickly. The chocolatier was obviously keen as well for us to move it forward quickly. Yeah. So it took about 9 months in total to kind of develop the idea to get it ready for market. We worked with a local design company. There was obviously a lot of dialogue as well, and looking at how the product might be delivered. Would it be delivered in bars? Would it be delivered in the drops? How would we actually deliver that? The size of so there's all these things to whittle down. So not just about the taste, but the delivery, the overall product package.
The tin, the packaging, the stickers, everything was a step at a time, You had to work slowly through it. We designed the tin ourselves, basically everything ourselves.
Yeah, we were fortunate enough to meet the William O'Sea, the London can maker, 4th generation can maker in London, so we could keep it all in the UK.
Brilliant.
And
it's lovely getting the cans, and I love it, and they're not just a flat can. It's got little dimples. It's it looks really, really, really smart, And you started off obviously with the Scottish regions, and you've got Wales and Japan. any plans to do an American to match some bourbon or some rye whiskies?
We've been looking at the different flavour profiles of bourbons. Yeah, we're kind of toying around with that at the moment. Looking at that, you know, sweet bourbons, spicy bourbons, sour bourbons, woody bourbons. So we're looking at that at the moment, but there's two issues with the US market, isn't there? You know, the big issue, you know, we spoke about earlier, was Trump's changes to the way freight was handled and the doubling of postal costs, which get fired to the consumer. And then there's also the weather, because the chocolate doesn't like to be kept too warm for too long. So, you know, I have to say though, in the last 18 months, where we're looking at just under sort of 10,000 units going out, we've only had two reported meltings.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's not bad. So it's pretty stable. But that is something we're looking at. This is our newest edition,
The latest edition,
which is the
English. Fantastic.
Yeah, and that was really, we developed that really in homage to some of the wonderful whiskies coming out of England, the Bimber, the Cotswold, the English itself, which really impressed us. And we thought, yeah, and a lot of our internet sales are actually down south of the border as well. So our best domestic buyers are actually people living in England. So we only thought it was proper to do something in homage to what's been produced south of the border.
I'm pleased you mentioned that the Cotswolds. So I've got a few shares in them from their crowdfunding campaign.
Oh,
So it's always nice to plug it.
Absolutely beautiful.
You know, and Bimber as well, you know, down in London. And yeah, it's a very, I mean, I'd love to have a whiskey distillery, but I haven't got 5 million quid, unfortunately, to invest in one. But, you know, one day. But so what is your, of all the pairings you've got, what are your personal favourites? Which region to which chocolate?
Islay.
Yeah,
Islay's amazing.
The Islay. I've kind of, my taste has kind of changed over the last 18 months. I mean, when I first got into whiskey, it was with heavily peated whiskies, Islay whiskies. So I think Lagavulin was was the whiskey that kicked me off and got me really interested.
Nice.
But I found over the last kind of 18 months, I've kind of moved away from peated. So I'm more a kind of non-peated kind of guy now, sherry cask now. I like to stick to that.
Yeah.
My favorite pairing at the moment, definitely a Bunnahabhain 12-year-old, unpeated from Distell, fantastic value dram. But I don't actually have that with the Islay chocolate. I prefer that with the island chocolate.
Okay.
And because you get it, it's nobody's saying it's prescriptive, Dave. You know, it's the product's about teaching people to be mindful, hopefully educating them to enjoy the drink that we enjoy for the nuances of flavour that you can tease out of that. And it's a bit of fun. It's a bit of fun, really, while learning.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's great because they come in, I'm going to say pellets, for want of a better word, which is great because you get, you know, so many. So, you know, it actually lasts a long time, and you can have, you know, one pellet with a little dram of this and then carry on. So, you know, to have the whole experience, if you've got 30 or 40 bottles open, it's completely open to that experimentation at home, which is a wonderful thing to do. And, you know, I think getting your friends around as well and having a chocolate and whiskey tasting session, you know, it's particularly nice thing to do post lockdown.
Very sociable, very educational, very fun. One of the most difficult chocolates to actually select. We left the Islay right till the end, to be the very last one that we actually selected, and that was the one that created the most kind of debate around it. because when you actually kind of read into the annals of Lagavulin history, you'll see that some people swear that you need to go and have a dark chocolate for that heavily peated sherry cask whiskey expression, and other people feel that the best thing to have with Lagavulin is Maltesers, which is obviously a very sickly milk white, sweet chocolate, So we kind of looked at kind of low cocoa content for that, and we also looked at the high. We ended up going with the high, and I think that was probably a good choice. That's our best seller, the Islay.
Oh yeah, fantastic.
Is the best seller.
Guys, thank you very much indeed. We're going to wrap up here. I'm going to have your details on the screen just here where people can buy some Chocisky, and it'll be in the description below as well. Everyone, really, it's such good chocolate. Even if you, your partner loves chocolate but doesn't like whiskey, buy the chocolate anyway, and you can just have a few of them as well. So again, thank you very much indeed, and I look forward to getting to Scotland and meeting you.
It'd be great.
Cheers, Dave. All the best.
Thanks.